You pop one round into the chamber, give her a spin, and close it, and then just pa. Yeah, no, that was good time.
All you had to do was let me blow his head off when I had the chance. Somebody help this man! He's gonna die!
Today we have cue 70s, 80s porn music, Copshop. Pretty cut and dry as to what it is. No bearing the lead here. It came out this year in 2021. Basically, you throw a couple of stars you know of together. So the main one to sell this movie, Gerard Butler. I guess we're kind of getting into it now, aren't we? You got Gerard Butler, and then you have the lesser known, but I actually think I like him more than Gerard Butler, Frank Grillo. You know Gerard Butler, obviously, from a majority of a range of different things. You know him from like 300 or other popular movies, stuff like that. I don't really have to go too much into him. Frank Grillo, if I had to say what he's most known for, I think two, and correct me if I'm wrong, the two things he'd be most known for would either be his role in the MCU as the bad guy who ends up eventually being Crossbones, or I guess his character in the second or third Purge movie? He's been in more, but like nobody ever realizes it's him. And in this movie, I almost didn't realize it was him because they costume and hair and makeup and all that, he completely has a different look than most of like all the shit he's normally in. But basically, they're both two hitmen in their own rights, and they're both kind of stuck inside a small town like police department. And then, chaos eventually ensues. What I'm going to say, though, is the star of the show, who I think blew both of them out of the water, Alexis Louder. I know I skipped over the director. I'll get to him in a minute. But I want to give a huge shout out to Alexis Louder. She was hands down, for me, the best part of this film, bar none. Acting, great. Her character, god damn did I love her character. It was great job, great performance. 100% somebody that I was behind, rooting for, and that I was in. I think she's the crux of what really had me invested in this film for sure. The film itself is directed by Joe Carnahan, who, if he were to be known for anything, his more known work, he did that movie with Liam Neeson, The Grey, where the plane crashes and then there's they're all running from a pack of wolves. I got mixed opinions on Grey, but that's for another day. And then he did the A-Team, the movie that was done like years and years ago, that had a bunch of big names in it. But yeah, that was I just realized he's worked with Liam Neeson a lot. And he's working on a film right now that I'm very nervous about because the original The Raid is fantastic, and now apparently there's going to be an American remake. I don't think it's a movie that needs to have an American version, but here we are. But yeah, the long and the short of it is that it's another one of those guys. He's another no-name director to most Americans, or to most people rather, and who has experience directing a lot of big blockbuster films, and now here's his newest action film. And overall, it wasn't bad. Here's the thing about Copshop. It was good. I enjoyed it. There were moments where I really enjoyed it, but it didn't quite pack the same punch for me. Going into it, the way the trailers advertised it, it reminded me of, and this is a film that someday I'm going to talk about because it is one of my favorite, underrated, guilty pleasure films that no one ever fucking talks about, Free Fire. Free Fire, it's not necessarily an Oscar winner, but I think it's a fantastic film. And if you want, what is Free Fire? I see a lot of big stars in that. Yeah, no, it's basically 30 minutes of build-up and then an hour-long shootout. And I love that movie. And this film, from the marketing and the trailers I saw for it, it felt like it was going to be Free Fire-esque. Like, you have your setup, 20, 30 minutes, give or take, and then boom. The rest of it is like, holy shit. And not to say that a movie has to have action, and bang, 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 guns going off the whole time, but I thought the pacing kind of suffers in this film for not having quite as much chaos as I thought there was going to be. They kind of aim for like a whole, who do you trust? Who they really say they are? Like, how's this going to go down? What's going to happen next? And then you are thrown into a bit of a panic room situation where it's like, okay, now we're in this room. How are we going to survive? What do we do? What's our next step? And there's moments where there's like action pops off and I'm like, okay, cool, let's run with this momentum. And then things happen pretty drastically in Act 2 that severely shifts the progression of the narrative. And I was kind of taken aback because, I'm not opposed to some Game of Thrones type of shit going down where, anybody's on the table to be taken out. But I was like, well, damn, that it happened. And now I felt like it was kind of pointless that there was build up for that to begin with. It's another one of those movies where it's not a tragic waste of potential because it still performs well as for what it is, and I think it still works, but it could have worked so much better. I feel like there were wasted characters throughout, aside from the main characters, because of course you have your top build cast and all this. You can tell who the primary protagonists and antagonists are, and even that guy, I forget his name, I'll pop it there, but I like how even the guy that's in a lot of the American Horror Story seasons, American Horror Story, not a huge fan, but I love him. I think he's a great character actor, and he's in this, and his role in this film is probably aside from our main character, he probably has the most personality, and it's amazing. It's great in that psychotic way. You've seen the character before, but, here he is again, and he does a good job. Like, 2/3 of the cast is just like, here's somebody, and we're not gonna go much deeper. And I hate it when a movie does that. I want a movie to, like, you don't have to give me a whole hour and a half long story for each person introduced, but like, give me some more to work with. It's possible, because writers have done it in the past, and so have directors, to give you characters that aren't necessarily going to be around too long, but you can make them likable or hateable, or give them some like stronger traits, or like something to like cling onto and latch onto, or to be more effective, or give some more longevity to the narrative, I suppose. But a lot of the cast in this kind of just felt like it was left on the cutting room floor. I don't know what it would be like, but there was an article I saw, I didn't go much into it, but apparently Frank Grillo said there was like, the director's cut of this film kind of makes some differences and changes that would have made the film a lot better, and the studio kind of messed with the final cut a lot. I don't know what that kind of cut comparison would mean, or how much it would elevate the film, but I'm 100%, if there is a director's cut, and it's a significant amount of time or changes, I would 100% love to sit down and watch the director's cut for this, because I'm curious to see if the director's original vision actually was better than what the studio ended up cutting and putting out there. Overall, even aside from the top build cast, all the actors did a good job. Gerard Butler is just being Gerard Butler. Frank Grillo is being Frank Grillo. Alexis Louder, she's very much the star of the show for me, and I would love to see her in more. Little note, costuming for most of everybody was pretty like, granted, she was a sheriff, like she was a cop, so she couldn't have too much for costuming aside from the uniform. But part of the reason why I wore this, I really liked Frank Grillo's his wardrobe for this, like his costume design. I liked a lot. Everybody else was just kind of like plain Jane, mundane, but like I liked what they had going on with his whole shebang, especially as the film progresses. I'm all about it. Overall, the movie was pretty funny, because it's supposed to be like an action comedy, that type of deal. And there's definitely some moments that are played for laughs, and I laughed out loud several times throughout this film. There's a couple really good lines in here, and overall, just some of the the organic comedy, the delivery, and some of the situational comedy bits were really good. And to be able to kind of interplay that with the dark shit that's going on, and the murder and the action and all of that, it's a good balance, and for what it is, it all flows together pretty well. But yeah, the bottom line is that as I'm watching the film, I'm just like, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, but I'm really craving more. There's some great scenes in the first and second act. For as kind of action-y, Fast and Furious-y as it gets toward the end, I still think I was in it when the action pops off in the third act for the finale. I was all here for it. So, but at the same time, there's that still nagging sense in the back of my head where I'm like, okay, this is all good, but it could be better. It was still, was it cheesy? No. Did the ending kind of get weird? Yeah. Was the ending also a little bit predictable? Yeah. Did this again do anything to like change the format? No. you know what you're going into if you see the trailer for it. It is what it is, and I mean, there's much more to say about it. Again, would it be worth going into theaters for? Maybe. If you're just looking for like a film to watch one weekend and you haven't seen any, you've seen everything else, then I mean, sure, it's worth a shot in theaters. But this might be another film where if you're not crazy about the premise, or if you're not dying to see something like this, then maybe it's a better rent or stream at home. But I think it's worth a watch, at the very least, to like see a pretty enjoyable film that, it could have been better, but for what it is, it works well. I almost said a strong 3 out of 5, but I'm just gonna give it a 3 out of 5. It was average, because for all the good scenes and sequences in the film, there were other scenes that dragged out a little bit too long. There were the pacing issues. And I can never put my finger on it, but it's a certain je ne sais quoi, as you might say, that just kept this film from being great. But I mean, it's good. 3 out of 5 isn't bad. 3 out of 5 is average. It's like an average film. I might be inclined to give it I almost want to give it a high 3, like a nice high 3 out of 5, but my gut said 3 out of 5. It's better than Malignant, but that's not saying a whole lot. But I would also be willing to, I could see that if the director's cut actually made a solid difference for this film, I could easily see this being easily a high 3 or low 4 for sure. But as it stands, if you see the trailer for this movie and it looks good to you, watch Free Fire instead, because you're going to have a hell of a lot more fun with Free Fire, I promise you. But that's about all there is to it. But yeah, that was my review for Copshop. Like I said, overall, not a bad movie, not a great, but it was close.
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
I'm always a sucker for shootouts in films. I'm a sucker for R-rated shootouts, not for the blood spray or anything, but just to see some solid gunfight action going on with a bunch of actors, whether it's fist fights, shootouts, whatever. And the plot was enough to hold me. The characters were enough to hold me. It almost all worked so well together, and it worked well enough, but like I said, could have been better. Stay tuned for the next episode of whatever movie review I do. Goodbye, travelers.